to Singapore for round 15 of the Trans Nation Formula One World Championship. I'm Brett Keenan, joined in commentary yet again by the one and only Matthew Elliott. And yesterday we had two very interesting races in the field of F4 and F3. We now come to the main pinnacle of the championship, the F1 and the F2 championships. Yesterday we saw in F4 a brilliant drive by Ken Doyle that ultimately came unstuck due to the wet weather that did come down during the race, to which Albert Ramirez Garcia took a second straight victory, with Ken unfortunately finishing in P5. Still driver of the day material though, because he was ultimately the driver to beat. And then in F3 we saw a very exciting race between Sterling West, Matthew Elliott, of course, who joins us in the commentary, and Tyler Beasley with a few other drivers. It was kind of a contrasted race that anyone could have won that race through some unforeseen circumstances, but a great result for all those drivers here. So now we come to the pinnacle. Unfortunately, our pinnacle today is going to be a little shorter than anticipated, but due to a few drivers not being able to attend. One, most importantly, John Lindberg, once again missing two races in a row, which is doing his championship chase no favours. Stanley R. Balrose will make another appearance today after taking a step back from the racing last weekend at Italy, and it looks like pretty much everyone else that you would expect to be here is here. So a few missing names. One of the other most notable ones would be the Legend Gamer 3, Engine Segal. He's just popped in the last minute unattendance, as well as Yevgeny Delacruz. Of course, Yevgeny does run his own karting championship, so that might play a part in it in itself. So, Matt, welcome to the show. We didn't talk too much about E3 yesterday, on or off here, actually. Just talk us through your race while we wait for everyone to ready up.
That was a pretty good race on my part. Kyla and Sterling had great pace. I couldn't do much to keep up with them, except for Kyla had to stop for hyper stops at the end, and I tried to keep it close, but only wound up being a second and off the pace because of penalties.
Yeah, that was one thing that we actually we had reminded ourselves of during the race, and then as the racing gets whether it gets exciting or boring at the end of the race, you tend to forget about what's happening around you. So we did actually forget about the 3-second time penalty from Tyler until you crossed the line, and being only a second behind from what was about 4 seconds the difference. So that was a very interesting Grand Prix. A few crashes, a few tales to tell, a few sob stories here and there. But I mean, when you come to Singapore, it's highly expected to see that kind of situation. Tyler Beasley also mentioning that a lap car spun him around on the straight, heading towards on the bridge. So that's probably where the front wing change needed. So just looking ahead now, as 9 drivers take to the Singapore or the Marina Bay street circuit, looking a bit darker than usual, which might suggest that there's overcast conditions, possible rain. We'll find out one way or another when. Oh, looks like Mackenzie Stewart's running the number 1 again without changing his number. I can just see that without even needing to see his car on the track. If you pay attention So for people watching, if you draw your attention to the pit wall underneath the DHL sign, you can see the list of drivers' names, nationality, and what team they're in. You could actually also see what car number they're running as well. And so Mackenzie Stewart, being the guilty thing, thinking he's going to be running the number 1, is running the number 1. So we'll might have to make a rule statement about 3 strikes and you're in the shit sort of policy. Definitely something that we need to do, because every other driver is able to remember their race number, so it shouldn't be too hard to just change it. And the more interesting thing is that Mackenzie's not leading the championship in hasn't won a championship in any other league, so there's no reason that he needs to run the number one, other than the sake that he wants to feel like he's number one, I guess.
Oh, he'll tell you he's not.
Of course he will. I've known him for 7 years. His ego just can't accept being anything less. Anyway, that's my bagging of him.
I guess that's the kind of attitude you gotta have as a driver. So.
Well, anyway, that's my bag of the day for Mackenzie, much like you'd be expecting anyway. But we just need to find out who was going out first. My attention was drawn away.
I think it was Stanley.
It does look like it could be Stanley. Actually, no, it's Axel Ericsson in the Alfa Romeo Racing. So what we're going to try and do, ladies and gentlemen of the viewing standards, is we're going to try and at least refer to the cars as they are now, not as they were back in 2018. So Axel Ericsson in the Alfa Romeo Racing car, tackling the streets around. We don't actually have any drivers from Racing Point, so we don't need to change that up. The only difference in it is that with Nadir Ziyat being in a regular Haas, not a Rich Energy Haas, that's the contrast. And of course the Red Bull, actually no Red Bulls this weekend, so usually the state of play was that if John ever missed a race, Guy was there to pick up the pieces, but today it looks like both drivers have been unable to attend. And of course we also had the news of Matthias Vicelli stepping down from the season to better themselves in FIA GT Sport Championship, so we wish him the best of luck there. He'll be back next season in full. Both Mercedes, but that's only contrasted by Stanley being here today. So 9 cars on the on track, but only 8 of them for championship position. So I'm starting to look at the prospect of maybe bringing in some other drivers that don't use assists just to fill in. It'll be interesting to see how they fare and stuff like that. And it would also give us a bit of an evaluation feel. This time and time again, and every time I've tried to explain it, something's always happened, and that was always during the race when it happened. So while we wait for Axel Ericsson to complete his lap, I'll try and get into the basis of how the evaluations work. So it's going to be a 25% exhibition race with short qualifying session, and ooh, jeez, that's big. Okay. So Stanley's gone, so that's interesting. Must have been pushing too hard. So it's a short qualifying, 25% exhibition race, and the best times, your time in the qualifying is one of the major factors that sits into play. So Axel will do a 38.3 as he crosses the line on the soft tyre, actually. So that's not a bad time, actually. But yeah, so the race is not as important as you would think it is, but it's essential to race it like it is a normal league race. And then from there we calculate the overall lap times, the overall qualifying times, and then we basically create the categories from that. So that's pretty much the basis of it. The rules are pretty simple: no damage, super soft tyres only in the qualifying, and there'll also be a tyre management system which pretty much says you'll race to a strategy of our selection, and how you do it's up to you, but generally, because you got to qualify in the super softs, you've got to do it anyway. So anyway, so we'll go off that note and back to the qualifying, with Adi Bettenbauer now taking provisional pole with a 35.7 on the Hypersoft. That's actually the fastest time we've seen all weekend, so that's not too bad there from Adi, as Axel Ericsson will now get out of the way of Mackenzie Stewart, who's trying to go for a lap here. He's running the soft tyre as well.
Alex Fretwell has posted in the stream that it's light rain at the race start. So.
Ooh, okay, so he goes to provisional P2 with the Hypersoft as well with a 36.7, as his teammate also goes into P3. So I have to say, actually, Renault's qualifying as of this season has been pretty on point, actually, since Alex Fretwell joined the team. I mean, let's not forget the incredible front row lockout by the two at Hungary, which then didn't really translate to anything, unfortunately, but their qualifying pace has really stepped up from there. Of course, they are running the Hypersoft tyre as opposed to everyone out doing the soft, so if there's expected rain at the start of the race, I'm a bit surprised to see a few drivers trying to do soft runs, unless they're trying to obfuscate whether or not how long the rain goes and whether it means they just go straight to the soft tyre. But even then, it's kind of like you're using these tyres in trying to put out a lap time, so it's not like you're going to get any information from this. Anything more than how fast you'll be on those tyres. Now, Daniel Val has taken the anti-approach to what Mackenzie Stewart has done, but he's still running the ultra soft tyre, which could or could not have benefits. But there's one thing I love, and I love watching Daniel in action. Daniel is just the qualifying expert in F1 this season. He just throws the car, and it just, whatever he does with his setups, it's obviously not a time trial thing, because if it was a time trial thing, the car would be absolutely all over the show, but he just throws the car in, the car responds beautifully to it as he comes through the last corner. Now, everyone manages sometimes to get this wall of glance, does he? Yep, he keeps to that continuity. He's going to round it around the last bend. It's going to be impressive. It's going to be a 34.9 on the ultra soft tyre.
My goodness.
And that just means that there's pace to burn on the Hypersoft tyre, so more than a second faster than Eddie Bettenbell on the Hypersoft tyre. That's incredible scenes we've seen here, people. And, he's taken the initiative. John Lindbergh not being here, and Daniel taking a historic win for Ferrari at Italy last weekend. It was actually a pretty good weekend overall for the Ferrari. Well, Ferrari and Ferrari engine outfits, with winning three out of the 4 races and securing pole for 3 of the 4 races too. So F2 unfortunately didn't really warrant too much success for Ferrari. In fact, it was probably one of their worst days in the office of the weekend. So they'll be hopefully looking to bounce back into perspective. Just another thing I'll mention while we wait for these people to come around and do times. The evaluation with next season, you're going to see a few names in different parts of the different categories. So you could see my name, for example, in F3. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm slow and that I'm deserving to be in F3. What happens is that F1 next season, we're taking the best of the best from all the categories that we've got so far that pretty much make up F1 and F2. Or, from every category. So people like Sterling West, Yevgeny, although Yevgeny's already in F1 anyway. But people like Sterling West and Tyler Beasley, although we've already discussed this thing with Tyler using assists, Matthew Plevy, Sebastian Spicer, all these names that come from F2, F3, then you've got F4 people that might run no assists and are quick, and all that kind of stuff. So you're seeing all this, so that makes up the vast of F1. F2 will make up the rest of the drivers that have got no assists that were unfortunate not to make F1 cut. I'm not going to name people because I don't really want to put them on a mocker. I don't want to put a mocker on them on that regard, because that then becomes an expectation for that person, and I don't really want to throw that out there. But so that makes up F2, and then F2 will make up that, and then that will become then the start of the medium assist users. So when we talk about medium assist, we talk about medium traction control. The likeliness we'd prefer for it is ABS off, automatic gears, manual DRS, manual ARS, sorry, and then everything else is pretty much restricted by the rules of the league. And then F3 will be the continuation of the medium assist users to, I don't know, it could end up that F4 becomes the last remnants of medium assist users, and then the full assist users, those who use every assist possible. The biggest problem we've found, though, when we've done the evaluation form, write-out form, is that a lot of drivers don't quite meet the standards for certain aspects. So you might have a driver that does the is presumed to have medium assist, but get let down because they might still use automatic gears or automatic ERS. So it's a tricky one. So Matt, if you were to give me pretty much just run it down to me what assist you use, I'd be able to give you
manual, gears, ABS right now, but that could change. Manual ERS and medium traction.
So you would definitely qualify under the result of a F2, F3 stanza. So that's pretty much how it works. So if you can run those assists, you'll be in the... Well, initially what we were supposed to be doing was creating a categorized system that you'd race against people that also were running in that same 4A, but we've also managed it so that it goes by times and days. Now, F3 and F4, and maybe even potentially F5 if we can get it sorted, they will also move to these times. So these days and these times. So what's going to happen next season, people, is that you're going to see two or three different streams at this time on this day, which is F3, F4, and then maybe F5. Or oh no, actually no, hang on, sorry, F2, F4, F2, F3, F5. And then at the 10 o'clock bracket, because we'll move every time down an hour from what we do this weekend, you'll see F1 and F4. No, sorry, actually, no, I've got that all mixed up, sorry. So yeah, F2, F3, and F5, and then F1 and F4 will run at 10 o'clock this at pretty much F3 time on this day. So I was just watching Daniel Vale there for a second, and he was very ragged on the Hypersoft tyre, but it doesn't look like... Oh, actually Mackenzie looks like he's trying to change his opinion on that, but he's now coming in again after an installation lap as well. I wonder if he was going to mimic Daniel there and didn't quite go for it. Now, so your current order at the moment is Daniel Vale from Addy Bentonbell, very good qualifying from Addy. He's actually improved to a 35.1 on the Hypers as well, so he's managed to draw, which is not too bad given the circumstances. Actually, if anything, Toro Rosso has been looking quite strong this weekend, but I hate to say it, viewers, but me and Jordan will probably let that value down this weekend, so I wouldn't expect too much out of us.
You could surprise yourself.
Probably could, but I'm not expecting anything more. If I I'm just going by the basis now. If I finish it, and if I finish in the points, it's something magical. But I mean, my championship's well over, so I'm not really too fussed about this season. It's more about next season. It's also all about other commitments as well. The TNF one, well, the Transnation community expansion fact to permit other racing games and all that kind of stuff. It's taken a lot of time up, but you know, it's good to see other people just showing their support in different categories, different game franchises and all that kind of stuff. But we'll see one way or another how that all plays out. So the only driver yet to set a time at the moment is George Vanderbruggen, and I'm a bit surprised by that. I know that he just recently announced that. Holy God,
Oh.
gee,
What happened there?
that looked like a. That either looked like he was trying to make ground, or he just. That was horrible. He must have been trying to get back to pit lane quickly, and then must have just misjudged the. I mean, that's why you don't. That's why you don't cut through the corners like Ken Doyle did that one in F4 during qualifying. You just don't do that stuff because it just can end like that. But that actually look. I was just saying he just recently bought us Fanatec CSL Elite wheel, but I don't know whether he's using it today or not. But he does use a wheel normally, so my guess would be that he's probably not using it today, and that he'll break it in over this week and then have it ready for Russia. So we'll see how that plays in. Now let's do a virtual onboard lap with Daniel Val, because I love watching him in action. So heading into turn 1 and turn 2, he's just so vapid in it. He's able to throw it in there so smoothly and just keep the momentum going through. Bit of short shifting to try and stop the rears from overheating and flying up as he goes through turn 3. Hard on the accelerator, the DRS very close to the wall. In fact, he gives that wall a bit of a glance as he goes through, goes into here. Now, this is a lot of things that kind of beg the question of, is he using a controller or not? We've actually come to learn that he's actually using a Logitech G29, like pretty much the vast majority of the field. So to be able to drive the wheel like it's driving a pad is very interesting, but it seems to warrant so much response. And if anything, him grabbing the wall every now and again, how he's not damaging his car by doing it, and how he's able to actually use the wall hit as a momentum slider is very interesting. So coming through, this corner can be very tricky. Even if you get it right, you've got to, because it's off camber, you've got to be able to throw it in and then try and get it back around so that you can make a good run out of the last part of the corner through the next chicane. He misses the wall this time, but this is looking overly like a 33. It's a 33.6.
Invalidated.
Yeah, invalidated 33.6, but I can't imagine that it was overly invalidated by much.
No, it's that. I think it was that left-hander where if you get a little too past the exit curb, it invalidates you.
It could have very well been. So we're just waiting to see what Mackenzie Stewart can do here. I think
right here.
Yeah, could have been. It's not going to be. It's only going to be a. Ooh. Did he do it? P2? Yeah, P2. So Mackenzie was able to fire back to get the second spot on the grid, but it's in yet another pole position for Daniel Val, which is going to be an interesting first turn based on these facts. Just going to have a quick look at what's going on in the rain to start race and tell Brett I'm sorry from Mackenzie. He knows what he's done. He knows what he's done. So this is your lineup, and it's going to be a very interesting one. Only 3/100ths of a second separate the top two, and then only a tenth separate the top three. So Eddie Bettenbauer has a very good chance of tasting success today. Whether it's a podium, it could even be a win if the top two have a bit of a faulty start, or although when you think about it, when it did say something about rain too, so here is the rain as expected. It's actually very hard to tell when it's a night race because it's black anyway in the sky, so the question...
And the raindrops just look a little like rainy, so you think something's wrong with the picture.
Yeah, you think you think your TV's having a fritz or having a fault or something. So, it's be interesting to see what type of rain it is, whether it's full wet or intermediate conditions. All I know is that everyone's taking their time at the moment on the prep up towards the race. Only Axel and a few others have only just started popping up now to say they're ready, but it's very interesting to see how many people are not too sure about what they want to do with their strategies at the moment. Wait, is that right? Am I seeing this right? As the driver's got...
I'm seeing colours.
I'm seeing tyres, yeah, it looks like...
They're starting on dries.
I get it now. It's that glitch. It's the glitch where it's raining, but it's not wet enough. Well, supposedly the weather's not wet enough to warrant the need for a tyre. It's either that or it's going to get harder and harder as we track along, but this glitch has been around many a years, even as far as 2016, and it was especially tricky with career mode, because in career mode you go into Q1, you do your Q1 alright, and then Q2 it would dump with rain, but it was still apparently dry enough that the AI could still post dry times on the dry tyre, whereas you had to basically change to the intermediates and you were virtually stuffed. So it's different in a league race because you've only got the one qualifying and then you've got the race, and it's very, very touch and go as to how do you approach, as Daniel Vale just goes full drift through the Singapore sling. But I don't know whether he's doing it on purpose for the spectacle because he knows we're probably watching him. Actually, while I'm thinking about it, maybe it'd be good if you run us through the TK Media starting grid while we wait.
Oh yeah, we should probably do that. Alright, and P1 with another pole championship leader, Daniel Val. P2 we have Mackenzie Stewart. P3 Addy Bettenbaugh. P4 Alex Fretwell. P5 Axel Eriksson. P6 March Trisandi. P7 Nadir Ziyech. P8 Stanley Belarus. And P9 George Vandenberg.
And George will be wondering, hoping that he didn't get caught in that incident, but unfortunately we'll watch our curiosity of why he hadn't set a lap time kind of set that point in motion. Probably would have wished we'd noticed it sooner, but oh well, it's the properties. We can't see crashes anymore when they happen, so we kind of have to watch the accident in place if we want to see a car crash. So we were just fortunate enough that we were able to see that one. So this is the interesting telling point. So it is dry on track. The rain looks like it may have stopped. I'll just have a look on board quickly. Oh no, there is still raindrops falling on Daniel's car. Now, Addy's car is positioned very oddly on this, but we're about to build up now, so we're going to wait for the lights. The lights will go out, and of course we'll have our extended period. Oh, someone's bobbling in the back of Renault's bobbling. It's lights out, away we go. And there's a fair amount of tyre smoke, but either way, Daniel Vale's going to try and, well, actually Mackenzie's going to try and force the issue here, but it looks like Daniel says you're not going to have that. And Daniel Vale's going to take the lead of the Grand Prix. Mackenzie will slot into second. Addy's actually managed to hold down third. Axel's jumped up to P4 ahead of Fretwell. Someone's making a huge move up the inside. Nadir Ziyech fancied a move quite early. Or was that Stanley Belrose? It was one of the two cars, but either way, Daniel Vale's going to try and lead them through into the next set of corners. Everyone's going to ginger through, and we've lost Nadir already. Oh my goodness me. I don't know if there was contact there or that was a lost attraction, but that's Nadir gone for the third straight race in a... Well, that's 3 races in a... Well, actually, I don't know how... I don't know how Belgium went, so I can't tell you that, to be honest. oh, I'm bad. Anyway, but either way, it's not a good result for Nadir, who's pretty much fighting for his F1 seat at this point in time. So, 31 laps around the circuit in conditions I would most definitely not prefer around the Singapore street circuit, and Daniel and Mackenzie have just left the rest for dead, and here comes Stanley around the outside of Addy Bettenbauer into the bridge corner. That's quite a good move there, and Addy's just lost a bit of momentum there. A bit of a touch from George Vanderbrugge, who's also made a really good start. One.
Oof. There may be questions after the race about Stanley's move on Axel. Kind of gave him a little touch and got him sideways, like a little bump and run.
Yeah, well,
we'll see what happens with that though.
Axel's been pretty
Axel's around.
Must have done it. Did he do it by himself, or was he helped?
It may have been he started to lose it and then somebody finished him off.
So, interestingly, at the moment, the biggest winners at the moment have been George Vanderbrugge and Stanley Belrose. Of course, Stanley's not in the picture, so right now, George is looking on the pedestal of a podium finish already from the get-go. Of course, we're only 2 laps in out of 31. Biggest loser definitely has been both Axel Ericsson and Nadir Ziyat, though. Although Addy is getting really grizzly on the straight, so one would guess that the tyres aren't quite gripping up to these wet conditions. We'll just have a look on board with Addy and see if it's still... Yeah, it's still raining, but it doesn't look like it's raining to the point where you'd warrant the need to change your tyres, but it's interesting. Now, anyway, Mackenzie had lost a bit of ground on Daniel moments ago, but it looks like Daniel's starting to get attacked again. Oh! Was that... Oh no, it's Axel Ericsson around again. I thought that was a yellow flag on the account of Daniel grazing the fence into the corner, but...
Yeah, it's going to be a wing change for the Alfa Romeo Racing driver.
I was just hoping that you weren't going to say the other Sauber, but I mean, the interesting thing about the whole Alfa Romeo Racing changeover factor is that Sauber still retain a hold over the team just very slightly. It's just that it's a rebranding. So you could pretty much consider that it is still technically Alfa Romeo Sauber. It's just that Alfa Romeo have taken over as full naming rights for the team. Anyway, up the front, a 3-second gap now forming between Mackenzie and his step-in teammate of Stanley Belrose. But Stanley's actually... I'll just have a look at that gap at the moment. Yeah, Stanley's starting just to slightly make some inroads on these two. But, of course, with these two, I wouldn't call them battling yet because they're not out really. But with these two being in close proximities of each other, it is kind of giving Stanley a bit of an incentive. Now, DRS should have been enabled this lap, but it doesn't look like Mackenzie has DRS on Daniel, so whether the game is still treating this as a wet race and that, I don't know, but Mackenzie's just dropped severely back all of a sudden. He's just dropped almost 18th of a second in the space of a couple of corners. So I know he was complaining yesterday while we were off camera racing that he was complaining about brake issues, where he was still getting a percentage of brake on his thing, and usually I used to think he was just making excuses, but when I was racing him the other day on GD Sport just as a fun race, I did notice that his brake came on quite a fair bit a lot of the time. And in F1 cars you can't tell because they don't have brake lights. They only have that red blinking light, and that's only usually to tell you that there's it's rain. And speaking of rain, Axel Ericsson's gone around again, so I don't know whether or not he changed his tyres already, but it's an interesting telling point. My guess would be... Oh, we've got a moment there. Addy Bettenbauer's gone around at the infamous, what we like to call the Schumacher bend, because that was where Schumacher was notorious for throwing the car into someone else's car and taking them out. But it's probably to... Oh, yes, things... Addy's burnt his tyres. March is coming in, so a lot of people will be boxing this lap, I'd imagine, because they've either overheated their tyres trying to stay on the circuit due to their due to this unusual weather pattern. We'll see what they're changing to. So March changes onto a set of Ultras, as does Addy. One would have thought that they would have chucked on a set of softs like Axel Ericsson, but it could be that they're thinking that because Axel's not really having a race at the moment, the soft tyres might not grip up too much to these conditions, so we'll see. Oh, excuse me. We'll see how that plays off as Daniel now controls the race by 3.3 seconds over Mackenzie, and in fact Mackenzie's falling right back into the clutches of his reserve teammate of Stanley Belrose, and I wonder if Mackenzie's got front wing damage. It might be that, or it's because he's running the hypers, he's probably overheated them, so I can't see for sure. But then again, oh no, Jaws, in fact Jaws has made some pretty good time up on Stanley as well. I've just by looking at the footage here. So
yeah, he's just been following Stanley the whole race.
If you have a look at the racing differences between these two cars, Stanley's car seems to get thrown out quite a bit more. Oh, Jaws, you're not fancying a move here, are you? No, you're going to give Stanley a bump by doing that. You're going to...
Because
DRS is definitely
Stanley was
activated
moving
because
up
it
through
is
the field,
working on
he would
Jaws'
just
car.
follow
So,
Stanley. Oh, sorry.
oh, and Axel's now in that fray after dropping a lap down. Could have a battle here between Addy and March, but that still needs a bit of time to develop. Here comes Stanley on Mackenzie now. Understandably, when you're the faster driver, you should be permitted through. But when your faster driver is actually not even in the championship frame, what do you do then? Do you let them through, or do you fight them, or what? It's one of those situations. But if I was Mackenzie personally, with the speed that Stanley's foreshowing, I would let him through and then follow him as he tries to go after Daniel. But doesn't look like Mackenzie's too willing to play that card just yet, but he is struggling. So I would imagine he'll be in soon to get off these hypersofts, which would then condemn the thought of a two-stop strategy. And a lot of people have been saying ever since the F3 and F4 have been on, I'm going to do the one-stop going to be easy. Well, if you want to qualify on the ultra soft and go to the soft, be my guest. But if you think for a second that you're going to try and make the ultras last till lap 11 to do that strategy, then you've got another thing coming. Because as you can see right now, Mackenzie's lost in the space of 5 laps. He's almost lost a second a lap to Daniel, and has lost that equal amount of time to Stanley as well, as Daniel just keeps posting out fastest lap after fastest lap, which is not as good as one would think, because you've got to remember, and I know I am prattling a lot, so sorry, I will let Matt speak in a second. You've got to be careful with the tyres on this circuit, because you don't want to overcook them, because if you overcook them, you're just going to be spinning all the time. And the part that's bugging me a little bit here is that why is Axel getting himself involved in this when he's a lap down? I know he's trying to get his lap back, but all he's going to do is he could cause a really big championship changing accident right here. He needs to kind of pick his battles a bit more clearly. I mean, I don't blame him that he's got the pace to try and get his lap back, but he needs to think about the fact that he's interfering with a car in battle at the moment that, while it does have a reserve driver in it, it's still a battle of perspective. But all this battling is actually putting Daniel clear ahead. So anyway, Matt, what's your thoughts on this?
If Mackenzie goes with a two-step, I think it'll probably be better. My experience on the softs,
No, he's dead.
they just don't rip up as well. So you got 2 compound difference. You got the super softs that usually fit between the ultras and the softs. So
Oh, you
if
could
you go hyper soft, ultra.
Oh, so you could hear me
You can
through.
make up so much time.
Oh, you could hear me through all that, could you? Or were you just improvising?
No, I couldn't hear you.
Okay, so yeah, my headset died. So I don't know how long I've been talking for and not being able to be heard. But anyway, Mackenzie's come in, so when did I suddenly drop off?
I don't. It was It wasn't too long ago. Oh. Stop go for Mackenzie?
Yeah.
Why was he got held? Mackenzie's gonna try for the one stop.
I don't think he's going to make it on that. I mean, we saw that, although Tyler Beasley tried to prove that wrong yesterday, and he admitted that to me after the race that he had been listening to the stream, and he was trying to prove me wrong that you couldn't make the softs last all the way to here. So it will be Mackenzie's turn to try and prove the point, but at the moment, Jaws has gotten past Stanley, and now will try and go after Daniel Val, who's got a 11.4 second lead, though Stanley's not too convinced that he's done and dusted yet. But what did you think of that whole situation with Axel kind of trying to get his nose in when he probably shouldn't have, given he's a lap down?
I say if you can make it clean and quick, go for it, but you got 3 cars there. I would just sit back and let what happens happen.
He's got only
Just
2
sit there in place.
Well, he's only got 2 cars left now to worry about, so... But at the same time, they're starting to pull away from each other. So, Daniel may have a shot here. Hang on, I thought Jules was about to come in for a second, which I thought was a bit too early for those runners, so... So, did Mackenzie have a front...
Oh, with Mackenzie?
Hmm.
No, there was no wing change. It's just he got held up. You know, the usual pit stops done, just sitting there.
Yeah, he might not have engaged the clutch straight away. But you said something about a 5-second stop-go penalty, so he must have got caught speeding in pit lane.
No, there was no penalty. I thought I got confused. Because I saw him sitting there, I'm like, oh.
But usually when you have a 5-second stop-go, it's at the start of this thing, not the last. Or Alex Fretwell does the fastest lap of the race on the ultra soft tyre. That's a bit interesting. The fields kind of get spread out a little bit, but at the same time, they've still got a few good battles, so it's not like F3 and F4 where you had a good battle up the front and then it was like a 30-second gap between the next field of cars. Although at the moment Daniel's sitting easy at 12 seconds at the moment. If he pushes too hard, he will burn his tyres out and cause problems for himself, but at the same time, if he pushes at this pace, he may even just as well get a pit stop ahead of everyone. I mean, currently...
He's not really running much ERS either.
Nah, we were having that kind of conversation as well in F3 that most drivers weren't using their ERS around the circuit for reasons that we weren't too openly sure about. Sorry about that. Anyway, so just trying to look at the gap between Mackenzie and Daniel at the moment as Mackenzie does the fastest lap of the race. 40 seconds is the gap from Daniel to Mackenzie, so Daniel has a pit stop and more in hand at the moment, so he doesn't need to push too hard as Fretwell does the fastest lap of the race with a 39.8, so one would say he's pushing his tyres to the limit. He's now right on the back of his teammate of March Trasandi. Now, if you were March, would you let him through or would you battle him?
Probably let him through. He's posting some good lap times. I know it's kind of against the racing way, because you want to get position.
Well, March has let him through, so that's good sportsmanship, and that's one of the biggest things. In regular Formula One, it's different because you're a driver racing with another driver, and you spend all year with them pretty much, doing all sponsorship events, racing of course, and all that kind of stuff. In online racing, you're racing against a complete stranger most of the time. You don't spend every day with them, you don't do anything of the sort, unless you know the person personally before you race here. You know, it's easy for people to... Oh, got to change of position here. I know Georges has come in, so Georges is a little earlier than one would have expected the ultras to go. But it looks like he could be going the 2-stop as well. But anyway, so yeah, it's not common courtesy. You know, if somebody doesn't let their teammate pass in an online game, you shouldn't really think of it as such as saying, oh, he's being a bad teammate and stuff like that, because they're not really teammates when you put it down to perspective. They're just two drivers from different parts of the world, or the same part of the world, driving the same car. That's it. That's all there is to it. Unless you know the person personally, you're only just racing against a person. So, like, for example, I don't think March and Alex would communicate that much between themselves outside of racing. Oh, Fretwell getting very loose in the rear coming out of turn 3 and grave the wall of grays. But as I was saying, you know, those two wouldn't know each other that well, and of course Stanley and Mackenzie wouldn't know each other that well either. But it's just a matter of cooperation. If you think that the driver behind is faster than you, then by all means let them through. But actually, just thinking about that, Mackenzie's only just narrowly gotten ahead of Georges there. So Georges is definitely looks like he's got some pace on him. Oh, hang on, here we go. Daniel Vahl now in from position 1. He's going to jump onto the soft tyres as well. So everyone's pretty much running the same strategy, except Mackenzie's been on his tyres the longest due to starting on the hypers. If anything, I think Daniel would be happy that that 33.8 was invalidated, because he would have been in the same position as Mackenzie, and we could have possibly have seen the likes of Stanley or Georges in the lead of the race at the moment. So Daniel will be happy about that, and he still holds to it. Oh, he nearly threw it away as I came onto shot with him. He's now got a 10-second lead over Mackenzie on fresher soft tyres, so we'll see how that plays out. Actually, has the rain stopped as far as we're aware?
Yeah, it's done.
Yeah, so no more confusion on the weather process, at least, as March gets a 3-second time penalty. And that's the other thing we've got to look at too, is that Mackenzie also has a 3-second time penalty for corner cutting, and I think Georges is safe from that. So if Georges can stay with Mackenzie for the remainder of this race, you could find that Mackenzie might drop another spot. And looking at the championship picture right now, I don't actually think the current championship points have been updated since. I'll just double check that. After Italy, no, it's been updated, so just looking at the championship picture at the moment, so Daniel Vahl has a 35-point lead over John Lindbergh at the moment. Mackenzie's only 8 points behind 8 points behind John, so at the moment John's looking like he's going to drop to 3rd in the championship at the moment, and Daniel will have about a 60-point lead heading into Russia.
It's going to be almost insurmountable, especially if he keeps racing.
If he attends even if he misses a race weekend at the moment, it's not looking like the end of the world for Daniel at the moment. And of course, his new teammate in Alvaro, what did you determine his last name would have been?
Vasquez.
Yeah, Alvaro Vasquez will be hopefully making his appearance at the Russian Grand Prix. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not his teammate can help him in the constructors battle. We've got a moment here. It looks like Eddie Vettenbell's had I don't know if it's a moment or he's just been overtaken or come out of the pits or something, because he's lost a position to Stanley and now he's under attack from Alex Fretwell. We'll see what happens here. Eddie just pulls out of the draft and lets Alex through. March has now come in from position, and he's now on the soft tyre, and Axel Eriksson's just trundling along, getting some mileage. Happily, after losing his lead lap, he's gone off the lead lap again, so he would have had he would have got his lap back during the pit stop process, but now he's since lost it again. So he'll be ruining his luck at the moment. Should have moved to the wheel. Axel should have moved to the wheel. Anyway, Daniel Bale now does the fastest lap of the race on the soft tyre. The gap has dropped a little bit from him to Mackenzie, but that could be on the account of Mackenzie pushing as hard as he can to try and keep Jaws off his back. But at the same time, there is a 3-lap difference in tyres between Jaws and Mackenzie, and between Daniel and Mackenzie as well. And oh, Mackenzie's in the fence!
Oh man.
He just lost the rear at turn 3, and it just fired him straight into the wall, and he's got a huge amount of wing damage. So I would expect to see him in at this present moment in time. He's going to need to be careful too, because Jaws is going to have a lot more momentum coming through here, and he's actually, he's just giving it up straight away because he knows he's not going to be able to defend that much with that wing. So he's going to need to come back in. But as a bonus to that situation, well, positive to that situation, I should say, he should be able to get to the end on another set of softs if he does come in again. So it's more realistic to make 18 laps work on a set of softs than currently what he's sitting at 20. It'd be 23 laps. So Daniel should now realise that there's been a mistake and that the time has dropped, because he would have seen on the start line that Mackenzie was 9 seconds behind, and now he should know that suddenly Jaws is second, 11.9 seconds behind. So you can't say, you wouldn't be sitting there thinking, oh, Jaws has roped in the time and overtaken Mackenzie. He should know now that Mackenzie's made a mistake, and that he needs to just back off and not push too hard, because he could end up in the same predicament. Axel Ericsson with a 5-second stop-go penalty for speeding in pit lane as we just watch him.
Should have used my trick and slowed down at the first line.
So we'll see what's going on there. Is Axel getting a front wing change at the same time? Yes, he is. So he's only dropped a position. Well, he's dropped an effective position to Alex Fretwell, who's on the ultra soft tyres and has been on the ultras for a while. So I can't imagine Alex will be out for too much longer. Can't remember what tyre he started on, but I would imagine it was either the ultra or the hyper. I could probably check, but I won't. He's got a 16-second gap to Alex Fretwell, and that's pretty much what makes the podium. And Stanley's dropped back from Jaws quite a hefty amount as well, so now we're starting to see when this is the thing that you notice, is that the field can be bunched up no matter how you look at it, but as soon as someone makes a mistake or an accident happens, that's when the field kind of breaks out into its own pattern. So you can see it quite as plain as day here at the moment. You've got 12 seconds to the leader, from leader to second. You've got 14 seconds from second to third. You've got 5 seconds from third to fourth, and then 16 seconds from fourth to fifth. So the only two battles that you're going to probably imminently see, unless Mackenzie can pull out some really rapid laps and times and start to put pressure on Alex Fretwell, but the only battles you're going to probably imminently see is between Fretwell and Belrose, and then Bettenbell and Trisandi. But even then, at the moment, it's not looking likely, because the gaps are just too far away. So I suppose while we've got a free moment in time, Matt, I'll just get you to review the racing so far.
Pretty clean start. No turn 1 incidents, and then Daniel just pulled away in his race so far, as George just clips the wall. Looks like he's got wing damage. That's going to be a damper on his race. Stanley and George.
Oh, you say that, he's just
had
gone.
a nice, yeah. They had a nice cut up through the field at the beginning of the race. George up 7 spots right now. Stanley up 5.
Now, in this kind of predicament, if I was yours, I'd probably stay out, because it's not... Yeah, it's probably going to be a bit of a hindrance to... Oh no, he's gone straight ahead at the escape road. Okay, so maybe he should come in, because it's actually becoming quite a bit of a handful from the looks of it. But...
Yeah, he's got no end plate.
Yeah, he probably should come in and avoid putting himself in a further position that could see him out of the race. So, yep, in he comes. So that's the second driver now on the top 3 to have been caught in an accident. That's going to promote Alex Fretwell at the moment up to P2, effectively. But he's expected back in. So Mackenzie should probably, unless...
I think Mackenzie will clear him.
Oh yeah, Mackenzie will clear.
Yeah, he's gonna.
I think... I mean, if it wasn't for the off-road at the escape road, it would have been a different story. But again, it comes down to a perspective though, because yours is going to have fresher tyres, so Mackenzie's still going to have not be completely. Oh, so yeah, Jaws has learnt that one. He's clipped the inner wall and bounced off onto past the blend line, so he may as well just. Once you've cleared the pit line and you get a warning for it, then you're pretty much clear to just take the track as normal. I learnt that once in Monaco when I went so offline on the track and got the warning for crossing the blend line, and then I tried to return to the pit lane and take the corner normally, or try to take the pit lane normally, and got a 3-second time penalty for corner cutting. So. So basically, once you've crossed the blend line, it pretty much treats you as back on the track. So if it's pit lane like Monaco, where you have to go through a corner to get out of it, it will actually just treat it as though you were cutting the corner to make an advantage. So you have to be careful when you do those kind of mistakes. So Jaws has to make up 8.5 seconds if he wants to try and get second off Mackenzie, unless Fretwell is intending to try and take these ultras all the way to the end.
I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't either.
He'd be really pushing him. So as it stands, I'd say Mackenzie effective P2.
Although, in saying that though, we thought the same about Daniel's strategy at Italy to take those softs as far as he did, and he managed to do that quite brilliantly in a one-stop race of supers to softs, which was sorry, allergies. At the time was a bit unprecedented, but he managed to pull it off. So maybe Fretwell could look after his tyres quite well. I mean, he's not exactly losing a lot of ground to Mackenzie all that much. I mean, he's lost the standard 2 or 3 seconds from the freshness side of Mackenzie's new tyres, but now it's just kind of stabilising between 11.6, 11.7 seconds, although that could be on the account that Mackenzie is giving the walls quite a fair amount of rubbing, which is not going to help his corner exit speed. If anything, I actually think he might have some more wing damage. And that's the one thing that you've got to remember, you know, one of the most importance of street circuits is that when you lose your front wing once, you generally you get that sense of feeling, and it happens generally again and again and again. But he doesn't seem to be doing too bad at the moment. He's just trucking along trying to make up the gap between himself and Fretwell, who's going to stay out another lap. So that makes 12 on the Ultra so far. In fact, the only driver on the double digits for tyre usage, tyre lap allowance, so that's quite an interesting feat. Daniel with a 32.5 second... Ooh, got a sector 2 incident. Oh, Jaws! What's happened to him? He's not out of the race.
Just not going.
Is that...
His controller, his wheel disconnect or something?
And he's been disqualified for being parked in a dangerous location, so... That's George's race over, but... What exactly happened for that to happen in the first place? There's no damage, so it's not... Oh no, the car is coming into the pit lane, so... But now it's been reset to the track. What? Is it gonna stop at any... Is that car gonna stop at any given time? We may have a problem. Oh no, there we go. Very interesting. Either way, this could be an interesting development, because if... Just looking at the gap between... Let's look at the gap, leader gap. This is going to be interesting, because Fretwell now comes in. If he does this, as Jaws leaves the session, so one would suggest there must have been some kind of issue with the wheel. Mark Tristandi could be looking for a career first podium in the F1 category. Although, in saying that, I think... I mean, he's got Addy for company at the moment, but yeah, no, I think Fretwell's got this actually pretty well sorted, but...
Yeah, he's going to pull away on those.
So that must... Yeah, so that's a two-stop from Hyper to Ultra, pretty much, so... It's not a bad strategy to hold out, but it's definitely one of those ones that kind of puts into perspective. So, two drivers out of the race, Nadir out pretty much lap 1, and Jaws with a interesting incident that looks like its wheel might have disconnected or something else, because usually even when... Because ghosting is off, so even if you're paused, the car will still move and it just won't ghost, but it's an interesting state of play at the moment. So we'll go back and see this battle between Addy and March at the moment, because it's getting quite heated up between these two. Addy's just recently got a time penalty for corner cutting. Oh, he just loves to throw his car into these corners and make a scene for us. He's probably got the stream on watching us doing it, talking about him now, and he's probably going to choke. So if you're watching, keep your head down and just race. Don't listen to us.
Oh, got real close to the wall through that one.
Yeah, so he's lost some ground now to March, so the status quo remains. Now, the gap between Mackenzie and Alex Fretwell is 12.9 seconds, so it's kind of an even balancing act. So from 11 seconds in front to 12 seconds behind, you're pretty much right in saying it is about a 25-26 second transit and pit stop time for the Singapore circuit. So Daniel pretty much has enough of a gap right now that he could do another pit stop and he'll be clear of Stanley. Whether he'd want to or not, I don't think he will, because unless he makes a mistake himself and whatnot like that, it would be very odd for someone to make a pit stop, unless you want to go for the fastest lap at the same time and make a statement, which I think he still holds anyway. Couldn't tell you that one, to be honest, but the battle between Addy and March is starting to heat up again.
Yeah, he still holds it by 2/10. Oh, yeah, actually, a little over a tenth.
That's interesting. So he could go for the full house today, and could Daniel Vale be our first driver of 2018 to us, which is pole position, fastest lap, lead every lap on the race, and then win the race. As of at the moment, I'm pretty sure he has led every lap. Even when he came into pit, he didn't lose the race lead because Stanley followed him in. And I think even if... Oh, now he's just...
There's Alex.
So now he needs to get the fastest lap of the race if he wants to get the full house. So whether he's watching or not, I don't know. But if he has heard me, the chances are he probably will dive in and take a fresh...
I think he has, because he has posted on the stream.
Yeah, but Daniel, if you're listening to me, I wouldn't do it because you know you're going to just compromise. You could potentially compromise yourself by doing it. So just leave it be, mate. We don't got plenty of time to do a full house. I think the only other full house we had was, I think it was Mackenzie back in GP2, back in the GP2 of last season, the Australian Grand Prix, where he had a overly
Eddie
dominant
with the move. Oh, not gonna get it. Oh.
Well, he tried to go for the cut over and under, but it looks like he was a bit too deep on the brakes, and he's,
oh,
and March has gone.
March into the wall and sideways.
And that's going to promote. So a bit of a mistake there by March has cost him a bit in time.
And some wing damage.
Mackenzie's made some time. Oh, hang on, gotta find my phone. I actually have no idea where my phone actually is. Oh, there it is.
Axel, he says he's going to get the fastest lap. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, he probably would. So, yeah, so for Mackenzie, it's been a bit of damage limitation. In saying that, he actually is catching Stanley quite, I wouldn't say quite significantly, but Stanley will be just using this as a motif to try and better himself for F2 coming up in about, what are we looking at? About an hour, 2 hours time.
2 hours? Yeah.
Yeah, 2 hours time. So these races usually this race usually goes for just a little over an hour, going by the length of the circuit. But in saying that, it's like, it's a virtually similar lap to Belgium in the way of its length, but it's always interesting that because of that, you would have thought it would be like a 23, 24 or 5 lap race, or 40 lap race, but I don't know, I guess it's because of the distance of the actual circuit that doesn't warrant the need to shop the laps. But still no word on Jaws and what's happened with him. March has come back in for a set of ultra soft, so he's probably going to try and go for the fastest lap at the same time. So it'll be an interesting telling point there. The gap now nearly 40 seconds between Daniel Vahl and Stanley Belrose. That's one of the biggest gaps we've seen in 2018. In the 2018 season. I mean, it is contrasted by a lot of issues from a lot of drivers, but still, there's just no clear understanding that Daniel Vahl is just driving one of the best races of his career. And you could look at today and say, should he greet the checkered flag at Abu Dhabi as the TNF1 world champion, he could look back at it and say, Singapore was the day that won me the championship. Your thoughts?
I would say, yeah, this has been a superb race by Daniel. Just too bad he doesn't have that fastest lap. I'm kidding. He doesn't need to go for it.
No, he doesn't. But it comes to contrast of the sheer nature that he's just been. It took the pressure from Mackenzie at the start, and then put the hammer down to capitalise on Mackenzie's ultra softs fading away, and then from there has been able to just pull out a gap. Mackenzie's drama probably also helped in that manner, that he was able to pull more of a gap out as Alex Fretwell does the fastest lap of the race again, of the 38.9. So you're running out of numbers. He's just not long come in for a set of ultra softs, so I would have thought, honestly, Axel, you would have jumped on the hypers. You've got a better chance of the hypers, my friend, but I don't think he wanted to hold on any longer, so he'll go for it, but we'll see how that plays out. The gap 41.5 seconds. Mackenzie on screen at the moment, just trying to pull as much time in as he can to try and catch his reserve teammate in Stanley Belrose, who's probably just been driving conservatively, slowly, just racking up, trying to think what I can do in F2 to make this better, all that kind of stuff. And to come from the back of the field, pretty much second to last to be second, is still quite a good drive. So Mackenzie now earns himself another 3-second time penalty, which I'll get you to check how many he's got at the moment versus Alex Fretwell, as March now does the fastest lap of the race. Only marginally faster, though, than his teammate.
Mackenzie with 2 corner cutting penalties. Alex with none.
So Mackenzie's going to need to be careful. If he doesn't watch out, he may lose second to Fretwell in the penalty side of things. He only needs one more penalty, really, and it's game over unless Fretwell can make 2 seconds up, 2.3 seconds up in the next couple of laps. But in saying that, now Stanley has a 3-second time penalty, which could probably lose him second on track. Of course, his position doesn't hold any bearance to today's racing, but Mackenzie will not want to push too much. If he's done the driver behind and found that Fretwell's got no penalties, he will be making sure not to push too hard and earn himself that third one, because if he gets the third one, he's got to try and make up a second on pretty grazed tyres to make that one stick. But I'm sure that he's listening now and heeding my advice and not pushing too hard, while at the same time not losing time at the same time to Fretwell, as March gets a 3-second time penalty for excessive corner cutting. And Axel Ericsson, there we go, there's his fastest lap of the race. So.
And then he says, "Told you" in the stream. No, he's just showing off.
I wouldn't get too cocky, Axel. You've still got March, who's still got pretty clean ultra softs on that could easily punch out another lap. I mean, he's got enough time that he could probably pit for hypers and put you in your place, so I wouldn't get too cocky on it. But I digress. Anyway, so the gap between Mackenzie and Fretwell is actually starting to extend a little to 8.9. So basically, Mackenzie's just covering the idea that if he does get a third penalty, he's going to be trying to make sure he's safe. So he's just hit the 9-second barrier now, so if he does get a third penalty, it'll be very touch and go as to whether he'll finish second or not on track. But this is only the battle that is bringing to the cards against Stanley is the only thing I'm seeing at the moment that's going to be worthy to watch. With the last few laps, Eddie's now going to come in. Let's see what tyres he's going to throw himself onto. So,
please be the hypers.
Yeah, ultras. So, yep. So Addy's decided he's going to go for the fastest lap right now, and he probably should be a bit. He probably should be a bit careful about it, because he is effectively P4 at the moment. As Stanley gives up the position to Mackenzie to hold on to second. Although the gap now is 10 seconds between what is now Stanley and Alex Fretwell. So I think Fretwell is going to have to accept P3 for today, and Mackenzie is going to salvage enough salvage a comeback drive that I don't think was ever in doubt really between himself and second place. But I know Mackenzie well enough that he'll be regretting the mistake in that prospect. So we've only got 4 laps left to run here at the moment. Daniel Vowell now enjoying a 45.5 second lead over Mackenzie Stewart, with Stanley Belrose, the Invitational, currently holding down P3. Alex Fretwell will be on the podium as a result of Stanley's place not in the championship, and Eddie Bettenbell currently P4 on a new fresh set of ultra soft tyres. So I would expect to see the fastest lap time possibly drop very shortly. I'll have to be careful in that regard too, because if they push too much harder, it'll come to a point where you'd need to use the hypersofts to make the fastest lap work. So if Eddie, I would say, but if Eddie posts his fastest lap of the race, it'll be a hypersoft time that would have to beat it, because it's getting, I think Axel's time was a 38.1, so anything lower than a 38 or a high 37, and you'd be pretty much asking to move to the next tyre. So we're just waiting to see where Eddie's coming out. So where's Eddie now? He's coming through the hairpin, so we'll watch his lap and see if he's able to do what he needs to do. He is actually a lap down, so position 5 downwards is all a lap down, which is quite interesting. Of course, we did have only 3 finishes in the Monaco Grand Prix, so our street circuit rate of attrition isn't so bad this weekend. It wasn't too bad in Azerbaijan as far as I believe either, but that was also another weekend of Daniel Vale success, I think it was. I can't actually remember who won Azerbaijan.
I think it was.
So, and that also, although John taking the Monaco race win compounds a near perfect street circuit success for Daniel Vale, but we'll just see now as Eddie comes around the last few turns. Will he take the fastest lap away? Yes, he will. He does it with a 37.7. So, sorry, Axel. It looks like you might need to go, and you've missed the pit lane too. You might need to go and jump in some hypersofts, my friend, if you want to try and beat that fastest lap. So, and Stanley now.
These guys are providing a little entertainment for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the least they can do, but I mean, you just can't take it away. I mean, Daniel Vale, I mean, he's just a world champion in waiting. I mean, even if by some horrible offset he doesn't win this year's world championship, it's just a case of he's been so dominant in the race, you know, in the races that he's been doing. He's just so dominant. He just puts his foot down. He pretty much sets an example for all future TNF1 drivers that want to be world champion in F1 and all that stuff. This is the guys, people, ladies and gentlemen, that you have to beat. Last season, of course, he was in GP2 and wasn't quite up the front up until about the midway of the second half of the season. So he started picking himself up, started to take in what he could. His race win at... Oh! Careful now, Daniel. You've got 2 laps to go. Just back it off. You've got 43 seconds. Just chill. But yeah, he took a very historic race win at Italy last season in the Toro Rosso wet conditions. So first, you know, pretty much, and it was the year 2018, so 10 years after Sebastian Vettel took Toro Rosso's first and only win in Formula 1 at Italy in the wet conditions. So it was a very repetitious nature for Daniel Vale to accomplish. And now he's just showing why he is the potential F1 world champion for season 2018. Of course, next season we stay with the 2018 cars, and then 2019 cars will make an appearance in F1 2019. Also, a bit of a personal announcement I'd like to make. I've actually decided to prolong my retirement from full-time racing to the end of the first 2019 season. So I'll be full-time racing hard next season, and then I'll have one more season just to have a go at the 2019 cars, and then maybe even depending on the nature of that is the nature of whether I give it all up or not. So just I thought I'd just open that out to the public so that they know my retirement's been postponed for another season, and hopefully I can have a better season to not change my mind on that one either. But anyway, I digress from that and move now to Daniel Vales as he starts the fastest final lap as Axel Ericsson.
Alex is thrown on the Hypersoft.
Why am I not surprised?
And Axel says he doesn't have any Hypersoft, so...
Oh, I'm sorry.
He can't do it.
I'm sorry, Axel. I'm very sorry. But anyway, Daniel Vales now coming along the way to what will be a second race win in a row. Actually, who won Belgium? Did he win Belgium?
No, he did not.
John did, that's right. These two, oh yeah, that's right, those two were, he and Mackenzie were battling too much, and John took advantage of that. So yeah, it will be a second race win in a row. It'll be his 8th season win, his 9th career win in F1. Of course, he did take the victory in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix in the F1 category, which was then pretty much a basis of bringing the categories together to show people what we'd be racing with. So he took victory there, and then he's been winning race after race after race as Fretwell now does the fastest lap of the race of 36.8 on the Hypersoft tyre. So that's all she wrote on that regard. But as she wrote for fastest lap, Daniel Vale will round the last corner. It may not be a full house, but it's still a grand slam for Daniel Vale as he takes victory at the Singapore Grand Prix, and in fine style beaches it into the barrier. The first proper mistake that we've seen all weekend long. Eddie Bettenbauer will cross the line for a effective P4 and then gives Daniel a huge wrap up the rear, which takes his car out of the Grand Prix. Eddie obviously not very happy about Daniel winning the race by 43 seconds, so decides to try.
Is Axel's car going to take it out? Oh.
Not yet, but here comes Mackenzie Stewart. Started second, is going to finish second. He'd probably be counting his stars on that, given that his mistake nearly cost him big time. Stanley Belrose will take the on-track third position, but will be removed from the results as per normal. So that will give Alex Fretwell a career first podium, and we'll now grab, while we wait for Fretwell to finish the race, we'll send the invites into the party chat and grab a word with our top 3 drivers. Unbelievable scenes at the end of the race. So here comes Fretwell to take a career first podium and does some donuts for his effort. Well, Eddie's car's still stationary on the main straight. So 2 Mercs on the podium, and of course Daniel Vale tasting yet another race win. I think it puts his total up to 8 for this season. I'll double check on that and reiterate that information for you come Russia. We'll just wait for our drivers to appear on the podium, or to appear in the comm box to have a chat. Okay, so Alex Fretwell. So first and foremost, just make sure that your settings are shared by all so everyone can hear you. Congratulations, you are effectively on the podium as opposed to Stanley not being an actual F1 driver. So congratulations, first career podium. How does it feel?
Yeah, not too bad really. It's a long race obviously from Singapore. A bit sweaty, but yeah, nice to be on the podium.
And you've helped Renault quite a lot. I actually have to. I said it in the broadcast that you've been helping Renault quite a fair bit since you've joined the team. Of course, your front row lockout at Hungary was a pure example of that, and you've actually helped boost qualifying ratios for both yourself and March. Is there communication going between you two for that, or you just feel like March is just trying to step his game up to stay with you?
I don't know, to be honest. There's been no communication there. Just sort of taking it as it comes. But yeah, it's not been a bad few tracks for me. Some tracks that I get on quite well with for my first few, so that's worked out quite well. The only real disappointment's been the first lap of Belgium, not making it past that. But other than that, yeah, Hungary and Monza were good races, and yeah, keep it going here.
Well, thanks for your time there, Alex, and we'll see you in Russia for round 16 of the championship. Mackenzie Stewart, you started second, you finished second. A bit of doubt in the way when you made that mistake at turn 3 that took your front wing off. Other than that, it looked like it was pretty much damage limitation.
Yeah, that was basically it. I was quite upset about the start of the race, having to start on the hypers. I was kind of going on the fact that it was going to be intermediates for the start, so that's why I went for the hypers. And then I feel like I was pushed smacked off wide at turn on the inside of turn 1, going around turn 2 by Daniel, but I can't really do anything else about that. But then the old hypers just fell away in the rain with no grip, and then I'm going under the grandstand on the first lap, going from the complete so much grip under the grandstand, go back onto the wet track. I just lost the rear end and hit the fence, and had damage front wing from that entire first stint. And then it was just damage limitation from there. Don't want to lose too many points, but because you don't know what could happen for the rest of the season. Yeah, I might be 50 points behind now, but still 7 races to go. So.
I think
anything can happen. So.
Well, I think it's a little more than 50, but it's still just marginally. But we'll move forward from there. So congratulations, P2, and we'll see you in Russia for round 16. Daniel Vale, biggest gap victory we've seen for a long time. We probably wouldn't say goes as far back as Noah and David's time. A bit of controversy at the back, which kind of which pretty much put that into perspective. Your only really big mistake that we saw all race was that one with a couple of laps left to go, and then of course your final lap stunt. You now hold a pretty commanding championship points lead heading into Russia. The question I think a lot of people want to know is, are you going to be threatened at any stage of this championship, or do you feel like this is pretty much your hand on the trophy already?
Well, I've never felt threatened by anyone. I have only drive the best as I can and just get all the points that I can.
So you don't really go into every race expecting to win, but when you do, it's just like, okay, well, that was just fortunate. Yes. Fair enough. That's probably a good attitude to have above anything else. Didn't really talk much about a driver of the day, Matt. Who do you think you would have had in mind for that?
Stanley was a good one. He cut up through the field pretty quick. Finished third on track. Alex did a fine job. Pretty hard to say. Daniel just dominant, and Mackenzie with his recovery drive.
I'm going to give mine to Eddie Bettenbauer for the sheer sake of just going out there and throwing out the fastest lap, just to annoy Axel, which I'm pretty sure that probably was the case. But I digress from that as well. So thanks for everyone for watching this weekend's Singapore Grand Prix for the F1 category. Daniel Vale, Alex Fretwell, and Mackenzie Stewart, our podium finishers. Not in that complete order. Brett Keenan and Matthew Elliott signing out from Singapore. Of course, stay tuned for coverage of the F2 category, which will be set in about an hour and a half's time, with Mackenzie and whoever he can find. That's becoming quite a bit of a common trend. So maybe Matt might take another crack at the com box. We don't know. We'll find out later on. With that said, we'll sign out from Singapore, and we'll see you guys again in Mother Russia.